Wisconsin, Iowa, and both Dakotas too. A country day is fine, the sky is blue and the sun will shine. The work is hard, but the living is good for you.
Hi, this is Steve Edstrom, the host of Country Day. Coming up in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a look at this exciting and unique program for rural viewers that in less than 11 months became the largest daily television show of its kind in the United States. You'll see why it's an excellent buy for your client. Right now, let me start out as I do every morning on television stations across the Midwest by saying fill up your coffee cup and join us, because here we go. You know, I get tired every time I see that opening because it represents literally thousands of miles that our crew has traveled all across the Midwest interviewing farmers and ranchers who've been on Country Day. But it's one of the reasons our program has been so well received. Rural families not only get information critical to their operations like weather and commodity information, cost price news, but also because they see other farmers and ranchers on our show who share many of their same concerns. We put in a few jokes, a little music now and then. As a matter of fact, the opening theme music you heard, I wrote and recorded and is part of the Country Day album that's going to be released. We put it all together in a blend that fits right in with country living. People like our show. It's reflected in the letters we get, the phone calls that come in, and also in the market research data supplied by Frank Maggott and Associates, one of the top outfits in the country. They're a consultant for our show. Got a letter not too long ago from a gentleman who wrote in and he said he had watched us and also mentioned the fact that he had just spent $150,000 adding acreage to his farm. And he was wondering whatever happened to the meaning of the phrase dirt cheap. I can sympathize. But this is where we start things out. In our kitchen every morning, we have guests come in, farmers and ranchers and experts who kind of kick things around a little bit. Matter of fact, that happened literally not too long ago. We had a goat in the studio. I don't know, we must have been talking about the goat business, and the goat decided to give us the business, knocked over 3 chairs and kicked our floor director in the leg. But we start out each morning by inviting our viewers across the Midwest to join me for a cup of coffee. And I invite you to join me now to see what Country Day is all about. And really what we're all about is providing you with an advertising vehicle that delivers a prime rural audience to your client. Now, there are 2 parts to the Country Day concept: the network and the program itself. Let's take a look at that network. The United States is an incredible producer of agricultural commodities, and right in the heart of America is the Country Day Network across Wyoming, Nebraska, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Over 1,300 miles east to west, over 600 miles north to south. With 3,643,000 TV households, the Country Day Network, if taken as an entity, would be the 3rd largest ADI in the United States. All right, let's take a closer look at the Country Day Network, shown here in yellow. It includes 16 ADIs on 26 television stations. And we're in the process of selecting a station in these 8 ADIs to become a member of the network now, and these ADIs will be joining the Country Day Network in the future. Now let me give you just a few examples of the tremendous marketing power held by the farmers and ranchers in the Country Day Network. There are a total of 388,622 farm homes within the network, and they represent 17% of the total U.S. farm households. They marketed, in a recent agricultural census, $4 billion in cattle and calves. That's 22% of the total U.S. sales. In hogs and pigs, sales of $2.2 billion. That's 41% of the total U.S. sales. And the Country Day farmers and ranchers put 26 million acres into corn, which was 37% of the total U.S. acres in corn. When you apply the buying power of these farmers and ranchers to your client's product, it's awesome. Well, so much for the Country Day Network. I hope you're impressed. Now, let's take a look at the program itself. Obviously, Country Day is doing a lot of things right. And one of the things that we do right is present weather. First thing in the morning weather with our meteorologist, Robert Winter-Dixon.
Platte River region today, we'll be seeing those waters slowly recede. Also, for the rest of the northern plains, generally cool air is going to be coming in. We have a weak cold front right now extending through the central plain states, and that's going to be moving.
Rob works in one of the most advanced weather centers in the United States. You can see some of that gear behind him, which I think serves as a security blanket as often as not. That's something called a weather facsimile recorder, which receives and prints out maps from the National Weather Service's computer in Washington, D.C. And back of him, teletypes, which give local information from weather services all around the Midwest. Our Country Day Weather Center ranks with the finest in the nation, equipment that is state-of-the-art, like that color-animated radar showing precipitation, forwards and backwards, slow motion, instant replay as applied to weather. He also utilizes instant access radar, showing radar readouts from 37 different locations in the Country Day network. And on top, a temperature sensory readout. I think that's just a fancy name for a thermometer. He's got a whole wall full of charts and maps which show wind speed, directions, rainfall, subsoil moisture. All of this equipment and information in the Country Day Weather Center utilized 24 hours a day by our 6 meteorologists to give up-to-the-minute weather to farmers and ranchers. Weather is obviously an important part of Country Day, but it is only one part. Those people and places you saw in the opening sequences, well, our Country Day crew is on the road and in the air full-time, traveling to locations throughout the Midwest, talking to farmers and ranchers and others who make the show interesting. Our producers find that the people we talk to are informative and, just as importantly, have great human interest appeal. And in keeping with the production standards of Hubbard Broadcasting, which produces Country Day, all pieces are done on tape to give lifelike quality to everything on the show. Before our program went on the air, people would ask me what Country Day was. Some thought it was a new breakfast food cereal. Sounds a little bit like a new soap on the market. And I would try and explain the extent of things that Country Day was going to do. And I found, particularly after the program started, that it was a lot easier to show people what we were doing and some of the people that we talked to than to try and explain it. So, coming up right now, a quick cook's tour of some of the people that have been on Country Day recently and some of the topics we've discussed.
And as far as you're concerned, what kind of difference in price do you see selling directly to consumer as opposed to a packer?
All right, we can average between $75 and $100 per animal more by selling direct to the consumer. And it's really the difference between profit and loss.
I'll bet there are a lot of cattlemen listening right now whose ears just perked up when you say 100. That's the difference between profit and loss.
Yes, it is.
But I was doing some calculating on the kind of performance that people were looking at in the 1976 crop marketing year, from the harvest of 76 into 77. And we were looking in 76 at price ranges in the market where the timing of the sale meant anywhere from about 85 cents a bushel difference in the corn market price to about $1.10 a bushel difference in the wheat market price, up to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2.50, $3 difference in the soybean price, depending on when it was sold.
So the soybean goes in one end of that rim, one side, and it's forced through that?
Forced through that and comes out the other. And
you can see there that now it's in operation, spinning around there. It looks like it's a little bit mushy.
Right, it comes out, well, we're talking in temperatures now, we're talking right around 260, 280 degrees. And when it goes through that process, it comes out almost as a liquid. You could almost say as liquid. And as it hits the air and it cools, then it crystallizes.
Uh-huh. And you end up with the final product being almost soybean flakes.
That's right.
On his part, isn't it?
I think so.
Do you remember how you and Bert first met? Huh?
Yes, we met on Christmas night at a dance in Minneapolis. He was there with some of his buddies, and I was there with another boyfriend.
Well, was he kind of a rowdy fellow or what? Huh?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think he was then.
He's sitting over there. What? What did he say about rowdy?
I didn't think he was then, but boy, now, you know.
Yeah. Well, now he told me that you came up and asked him to dance.
No,
Is that right?
No. No, we met in a circle twist.
Oh, I see.
Changed partners.
I see. I must have that wrong. Well, apparently you've decided to stay with him, huh?
I think I will.
I think so.
There are an awful lot of countries around the world who are just waiting for an excuse to keep U.S. agricultural products out for one reason or another. And if we start applying import restrictions against somebody's products coming in here, they're going to eventually retaliate and apply import restrictions against our products. And when we get into that kind of a game, we're going to lose, because we export 24 billion, we import about 10 in agricultural products, and that means for every dollar's worth we cut off, somebody's liable to cut off 2.5 of ours, and that's pretty poor business.
$25,000 for the well and the system.
Now, how common were irrigating systems in this part of the country at that time?
Well, there was a little irrigating done around with hand move system, but this is actually the first center pivot in Dakota County.
Did your neighbors think that you were an innovative genius and a man ahead of his time, or did they think you were a little crazy?
I guess mostly crazy.
That's what Country Day is all about, the program and the network. Our broadcast research is done by Frank Maggott and Associates, as I mentioned, so we know what those farmers and ranchers in the rural households want, and we deliver it each morning across the Country Day network. It's an excellent buy for your client, and you'll see further evidence of that in the Leave Behind material that you'll be getting if you haven't already. Join us as part of the Country Day network, an advertising vehicle that delivers that prime rural audience your client's after. Thanks for watching, and just let me say, as I do at the end of each program, have a good old country day.
Good old Minnesota and Wisconsin, Iowa and both Dakotas too. A country day is fine, the sky is blue and the sun will shine. The work is hard but the living is good for you.
Way we came up with a percent, and then through the years I had the opportunity to purchase more things on the farm and increase my net worth.
Do you hire a specialist or a legal expert on farm partnerships? How do you go about doing that?
We had a farm manager come out of Madison, and he kind of set it up and gave us the idea of setting up the partnership in that aspect, and then we did go to our lawyer and have it drawn up as far as what I would own on the place, my options as far as purchasing in the future.
With the partnership now with your dad and yourself, how do you divide up labor? Is he in charge of some aspects of the operation and you run others totally, or what?
I guess I'm basically responsible for the dairy operation, and we do work back and forth together. I've got a sister going to school, and she helps during the summer with a lot of work, and also comes home during the time of while she's going to school. As far as my dad's concerned, he has a lot of the management responsibility as far as purchases, crop rotations, and does an awful lot of field work.
Mm-hmm. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
What are your plans in the future? Do you want to take over
To
the
get
farm?
married or
Well, I don't want to get personal here, Jim. Have you got any announcements you want to make to your folks on television? Huh?
I guess I would be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of farming, do you intend someday to take over the operation, or the partnership is fine?
I guess we are a two-man operation or two-person operation, so I think it will stay a partnership in some aspect. Maybe my sister might get into the farming operation at some point in time. There's a lot of possibilities that we can have in the operation.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
This is a successful operation. I understand that you built it up quite a bit from when the partnership originally started and when you moved to this farm 7 years ago.
We did only have like 210 acres where we came from with about 28 cows, so we have expanded quite a bit, and at the same time, we had mostly a grade herd at that time, so we've gone mostly to registered Holsteins now, and the herd is about 75 or 80% registered.
That sounds like a good combination. You've got your youth and energy and your father's great wisdom, the wisdom of the ages.
Very
right?
true.
You can't help but be a success.
No, I think the one aspect a lot of people don't realize, and it's going to get tougher all the time, it's awfully hard to get into farming without a father or some sort of relation that's willing to put out a lot of effort and time. It's almost impossible.
That's right, that's right.
Because there's such a tremendous amount of expense involved, and it's a gamble from the word go, because you really got to battle the elements.
No. Well, he's made it possible for you, and I wish both of you luck in the future.
Thank you very much.
Jim Harsdorf, near Beldenville, Wisconsin, and talking a little about his partnership with his dad. I was watching that. Now, as you saw there from the lush greenery on the hillsides and out there in the meadow, that it was summertime when we visited with Jim, and boy, that brings back memories. Kind of good to see flies again, isn't it? Ah, yes, to be able to swat flies and mosquitoes. I never thought I'd look forward to that, but this kind of weather brings that out in a person. We're going to talk about writing your family's history, coming up with Alice Zorb in just a second, but before that, we would like to invite you to write to us, and you have any reactions to the show or any ideas, any subjects you'd like us to cover. We're real flexible, and we'd love to hear from you, wherever you might be around the five-state area, in the Dakotas or Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. Country Day is broadcast across the Midwest each morning, Nebraska, Wyoming, into Montana. Wherever you might be, write to us right here at Country Day, Post Office Box 80136, Como Station, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55108. That's Post Office Box 80136, Como Station, St. Paul, Minnesota. And if you have a reaction to the show or any ideas for us, we'd welcome your letter or cards, and we'll hopefully be able to attend to it pronto. In the meantime, we have this word, and we'll be right back.
Good morning from Wholesome Foods, a division of Honeymead Products and the Grain Terminal Association, GTA. Food quality. You know, those are big words for today's consumers because you want the freshest, most nutritious products available for your table. But did you ever wonder how a food processor maintains quality within a plant? Let's listen to the Quality Control and Product Development Manager at Wholesome Foods.
We inspect the ingredients when they're received. We check the finished product. We test for acidity, salt, moisture, fats. We check the pHs, soluble solids. We check colors and flavors, consistency, and we check the fill of the package to be sure that we have the right weight, not too much over and nothing short.
So you see, it's quality that goes in that gives you quality for your table. Fresh from the people at Wholesome Foods, now a part of the Co-op Road to Market, GTA.
The makers of Robitussin cough medicine don't think you should let just our television commercial recommend your cough medicine. The fact is, there are different kinds of coughs. That's why there are 4 different kinds of Robitussin cough medicine. When you have a cough due to colds or flu, there's one way you can be sure you're getting the right kind of medicine for your kind of cough. The makers of Robitussin ask you to ask your doctor.
What if you were swept up in disaster? What if your kid were drowning? What if your father were dying for blood? And what if nobody cared? Red Cross cares about a lot of things that cost a lot of money. But we think life is worth it, don't you? We're counting on you. Red Cross, the good neighbor.
Good morning. It is 11 minutes before the hour on this Country Day, and I feel a little bit like Ralph Edwards because I have a book here, and I should almost say to you, this is your life. Or more accurately, this will be your life story because it is a book that you're going to write or could write about you and your family's background called My Life Memories,
And the author of this book without words is Alice Sorb. And Alice, I appreciate your visiting with us this morning.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's my pleasure.
Bright and early on a cold, chilly morning like this, I think the subject of a person's family background might warm up the cockles of your heart. Tell me a little about this book. What is it all about?
Well, it's pretty much, Steve, as the title implies, it's a story about your life memories. There are a number of questions in the book with space available to answer these questions. And when you have completed all the questions, you will have written your own life story.
All right.
Perhaps maybe we could just look at a few pages in the book.
Let me hold that
okay,
up.
Fine.
I think you'll be able to.
All right. Go ahead and turn the next page there.
All right, so that'll
be the beginning of the book.
Yeah, you've had this at home now. My life memories by and then when you started.
The beginning of the book sort of tells you information on how to get information for the book.
Okay.
It starts out with a family tree.
This looks like, it actually looks like a cross-section of a tree too,
yes,
you know.
That's right.
Just
okay.
stump. Now what you have here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but you would fill in starting down here, mother and father.
Right, and then you go on to the grandparents.
Then
it
on
takes
your
you
mother's
through 5
side,
generations.
through there, yeah. The name, when the grandparents or great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents were born, died, married, where they lived.
Okay, and then the next page is a date line of all the important events that have happened in your life. And
I mean, like graduation or taking over the family farm or buying your own operation. All right.
Okay, and then that page covers your birth, your nationality, and your citizenship.
All right.
And then there's a page on your name. You know, was your name made up or inherited? What's the meaning of your name? And so on. Did your name?
What is this? What is the map for?
Well, you can use that in a number of ways to point out perhaps maybe places that you were either born or where you've lived.
All right. I should mention that the book has, I don't know, what, 100 pages?
Over 100, about 133.
Over 100,
actually.
so there's all kinds of information. And really, it's up to the person that buys the book to write the book, and there's a lot of research involved. What are some of the other section headings that you have besides?
Well, it takes you basically through all the stages of life, from birth through retirement. Oh, it covers school days, courtship, military life, your vocation. Then there's a section in there that's my favorite. It's called Personal Views. And this is where you really get to know the person because you ask questions like, you know, what are your hobbies? What are your goals in life?
I thought also that those are obvious questions, but obviously or maybe not so, when you're talking with your great-grandmother, for example, if she might still be alive, or even your parents, to get their views on what happened, the story of maybe how your great-grandparents came to this country.
Yes, there is a section on that of, you know, the first one in your family to come to the United States. Where did they come from, and why did they come, and where did they settle, and so on. So
where did you get the idea for a book like this?
Well, actually, the idea started over a year ago when I started a small company called Heritage Recording in St. Paul. And I was recording the personal life stories for people, and they were so fascinating and so interesting that I decided I really needed to reach more people than I was by doing a few interviews. And so I designed this book, and I tried to get it published and couldn't find anybody to do it for me. So we decided to do it ourselves. And it's been out since November 1st, and now we're going into a second printing, which I'm just terribly excited about.
What kind of reaction do you get from folks who buy your book and fill it out? What do they tell you?
Oh, the letters have just been so interesting. People have really been excited. They've been wanting to do this for such a long time, but they haven't known how to get started. And this book really helps them get started. And the funny thing that's happened that I just never anticipated is that people are buying books for everybody in the family. I'm getting orders for like 7 and 8 books.
I
anticipated maybe a husband and wife buying a book or something. But so that's been very exciting. And
you know, I have to admit, when I first heard of your book, I was a little skeptical and thought that it, you know, that it was one of those, oh, who needs another one of these kinds of deals? Yeah. And I started looking through it, and I've decided to fill it out myself. There are so many questions in there that when you really stop and think, gee, what was that? What was the name of that town in Sweden? And this book kind of forces you to find out more about your family's background.
You know, that might be a good point to bring up, Steve, right now, is that it really isn't a genealogy. It's more your personal life story, your feelings, your thoughts, your memories, rather than a genealogy. There is some genealogy in it, but basically it's your life story, and who can tell it better than you?
Well, I'm not sure now. Let me think. There may be somebody, but I can't think of too many people that could tell my life story better than me. What did you find out about your family background that surprised you? Was there one thing that kind of...
Well, actually, there have been a number of things that I have found out. And I feel really bad about this. In fact, this is one of the reasons that got me started in the recording business, was that my children were asking me questions about my parents that I was unable to answer. My mother and father were married in 1922 in Syria. By the way, their wedding was arranged. Now, we don't have arranged weddings in our country, but their parents had arranged the wedding, and they came to this country. And
you were forced to look into all of that. Huh?
That's right, yeah. And it was really very fascinating. They came to this country. My father was a butler in Minneapolis for a few years before he started a rug company in Minneapolis.
That's fascinating. Well, I like the idea. As you know, it's everyone seems to be interested in their own roots and their background and where their family came from. And maybe at home you've already taken care of that with a lot of family albums. But if you haven't, this is something that you might be interested in. We have an address. Should we mention that?
Yeah, why don't we mention the price, Steve, too? It's $8.95, including mailing and postage.
Okay. Heritage Recording. We're giving you a lot of addresses this morning. Box 8132, St. Paul, Minnesota. And the book is a good one. It's empty right now, but if you spend a little time talking things over and looking at all those documents, there's room for photographs and everything in here. I think you'll come to know your own family even better than you already do. Thank you, Alice. I appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure, Steve.
We'll be back right after this.
Want to try something better than the powder? It costs a lot less this year.
Liquid Atrex 4L.
Come on, give it a pour. Try Liquid Atrex 4L. It's the only way to find out what it's worth to you. Want to try something better than the powder? It costs a lot less this year. Liquid Atrex 4L. Come on, give it a pour.
Among this nation's powerless, surely Native Americans have had the fewest alternatives for achieving self-sufficiency. The Northern Cheyenne of Montana were recently faced with a profound dilemma. They could trade their treasured land to coal interests for momentary riches, or preserve that land in poverty. Then they discovered another choice. With support from the Campaign for Human Development, they cleared the land, established a sophisticated irrigation system, and have greened their corner of the earth with wheat, alfalfa, and barley. The result is new jobs, new income, and a new chance at the future, on their own terms. People together can make a difference. Campaign for Human Development, U.S. Catholic Conference.
America is filled with art and culture, and everybody should have access to it. Yet everybody is handicapped sometimes. Too many of our buildings today discriminate against the handicapped. Let's eliminate obstacles. No body is perfect. For more information about arts, architecture, and the handicapped, write Arts, Box 2040, Grand Central Station, New York, New York, 10017.
It is 2 minutes before the hour. Coming up on next couple of country days, we'll talk with Howard Owen. We'll take a look at rodeos and also find out about scrimshaws. So join us if you can for that hot cup of coffee, a little information, the weather. I'm Steve Edstrom. In the meantime, have a good old country day, neighbor. See you next time.
A country day is fine. The sky is blue and the sun will shine. The work is hard, but the living is good for you.